with members of the global commercial real estate firm Colliers. And this was a huge blockbuster announcement not too long ago when many of the key leaders in the commercial real estate industry decided to move over to Colliers and be a Santa Barbara presence for this global firm. So I'm really excited to have this conversation to learn what does that mean and how that is going to affect Santa Barbara and get a real sort of insider view from everyone here. I'm here today with Austin Herlihy, Miles Waters, Mike Lopus, Mike Chung, and Ricardo Pacheco. Welcome to the show. I appreciate your time. I want to just dive right in. Okay, I cover commercial real estate, and there's a few local firms in town that I primarily deal with in terms of deals that are happening, and then Colliers comes in, and this is a huge change in the landscape. So, Ricardo, I wanted to talk to you. What is Colliers? What does it mean? Why is it so significant for you all to be in this market? And what attracted you to Santa Barbara?
Yeah, no, thanks, Joshua. So first of all, kind of what is Colliers, right? So Colliers is, a globally diversified kind of full service real estate company. We operate in over 70 countries around the world. We're in every major city. We've got over 23,000 professionals kind of worldwide. And really we're the third largest publicly traded commercial real estate firm by market cap. So as we are looking at kind of the landscape, across the country and across the world, right, in the markets we want to enter, it starts with both an attractive marketplace, but it primarily is the people, right? And as we started to see the exciting growth that's been happening in Santa Barbara, especially in the tech community and otherwise, it really seemed like an opportunity for our firm to bring kind of the full service capabilities of a global real estate firm to a market that previously, was just serviced by some local firms. So as we saw that opportunity, it was really about finding the right folks that fit our culture. We're very entrepreneurial in spirit. We really want to, make sure we have the professionals that fit what we're really building and what we are as a firm. And when we were talking to this team, they did exactly that. This is exactly who we wanted over at our firm. They're market experts that are extremely well respected, and we believe, will really thrive in having the full service capabilities that Colliers is able to offer them and their clients. So not only if there are, opportunities locally in the Santa Barbara market, right, we're able to kind of service them, throughout the country, throughout the, the globe, which is really where we were able to differentiate ourselves, and a service that these clients have candidly been lacking in the Santa Barbara market, right? So you may live in Santa Barbara, but your business may be, in another part of California, another part of the country, or even world. And, with our global network of top tier brokerage professionals, this team is now able to service those clients no matter what kind of product they have, no matter where it is, around the world. And, we find that to be a huge differentiator and a area to really provide value for the clientele that's within the Santa Barbara and Central Coast market.
Have you been eyeing this market for a certain amount of time? When did Santa Barbara sort of go on your radar for great potential there?
Yeah, it's always been a market that we've paid attention to. We saw it as a market with a gap without one of the global firms that had an office and represented here. So it's been something we've been looking at for years, and it really was important for us as we kind of stake our flag within the market to find the right team to do so. So as we met with and built relationships, with all the members on this team and on this call, that was the right time and the right place to really kind of go into the market, which for us was perfect timing as we also started to see really the growth in the Santa Barbara market with, some global and, very top tier firms, especially in the tech space and otherwise, really taking an interest there as well. We've had many clients, that have had business to be done in Santa Barbara, and without having a local presence there, we weren't able to service them in the way that we wanted. And so once we were able to find this team, it was the perfect opportunity for us to open up an office and service the community as well as our clients that have leases or own assets within the Santa Barbara market.
Great. We're going to talk specifically Santa Barbara and South Coast deals and the market in a second, but I kind of want to go around and sort of give everybody a chance to talk. I know that obviously with any company, when you see this amount of people move from one organization to another, it's significant. And of course, we didn't mention Chris Parker, who also is part of this team. And all of you are very big players with a lot of experience and experts in your field. So maybe I just go around and sort of ask you sort of what stood out about Colliers, why you wanted to make the move from Radius, and sort of what your roles are in this context. And then we'll talk Santa Barbara and what's going on with the landscape there. Austin Herlihy, let me start with you. Talk to me about your move from Radius, why you did it, and what you're focused on now.
Well, I think, first of all, I had 20 great years at Radius Group. They're good guys. I consider them all friends of mine. And it really was a matter of us seeing that Santa Barbara, I felt like has really changed in the last 4 or 5 years and has really kind of outgrown the boutique firm. And I'd kind of always had my eye looking for, something, always looking for a better opportunity, right? And some way that I can service my clients better. And by doing that, securing more business. And really the proof was when we came over on our first day, and Leanne, who is our PR person, had done this great press release. And out of nowhere, we're on the front page of the CoStar national newsletter. And not because of Austin Herlihy, Mike, or Miles or Chris. It was really about Colliers in Santa Barbara. And what it proved to me more than anything was Santa Barbara is on the map. People are paying attention to Santa Barbara. People are looking at Santa Barbara. And when it got launched on Colliers' LinkedIn site, I started to really dive into that. And it was like, wow, we've got over 1 million followers on LinkedIn. And I was getting contacted from people that I knew in high school that live on the East Coast that had seen this press release. And then it really started to sink in. It was like, wow, the reach is just so much further than any of our competitors. And we just saw it as a distinct advantage for our clients and for us to team up with them. And it's been great.
That's great. Yeah, that's an amazing amount of followers there and a global reach. Mike Lopus, I recently watched you. I've seen you before talk at these, economic forecast type events, and you're talking about the state of the market. Tell me about why you moved and what stands out about Colliers.
I just think, again, thank you for the time and having us on here. I just thought it was a great opportunity. Colliers is a very, as Ricardo had mentioned, entrepreneurial organization. And, I was teaming up with a couple great guys that have a lot of experience. I mean, I think Colliers itself provides us an opportunity to service our clients with greater exposure. They've invested a ton in technology and just a lot of resources that are able to help our clients, and kind of it's very client focused. And so this is just a great opportunity for us, as well as the reach. We now have the ability to expand for our clients into other markets if they do want to get out of California, if they do want to get out of the kind of the local Santa Barbara region, are looking for different markets to break into. We now have the resources and connections to be able to do that, and we can always kind of be that main center point of contact and help them kind of navigate these other markets and other areas that they want to explore. So it's just, a really good opportunity. A lot of very good technology, a lot of good people over here at Colliers as well. So it just seemed like a good change of pace.
That's great. Miles Waters, you want to chime in here?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Santa Barbara, and I was at Radius for about 6 years and had nothing but a great experience there. I'm super grateful for everybody there and the experience that it gave me and the relationships that I made and so forth. I actually started my career at a big global national firm, CBRE in LA. So I'd had some exposure and some experience with kind of their capabilities and the product that they deliver to their clients. And what I really noticed was there's definitely was a gap in the market here in Santa Barbara for that particular product. You know, there's always been just boutique firms here, and there's definitely was an opportunity for us to service our clients better, bring a product to the market that's never really been introduced here. Other bigger national firms have tried to come here, and traditionally they've planted other professionals from outside the market into the market and tried to just make it work that way, and it never really stuck. But Colliers, you know, came to us and said, hey, we can pair our national platform with your guys' local expertise, your local knowledge, your deep you know, relationships that you have here, and create a product that really, you know, is going to make a splash and be very effective for your clients. And we did just that, and it's been a great experience. And one thing that makes Colliers unique, I think, is that they, like Ricardo was saying, they do a really good job of kind of threading the needle of being that big global national firm, but also keeping a very entrepreneurial, very nimble culture and mentality. You know, you still have, you know, street brokers that service mom and pop clients. And while we have some institutional clients here locally, we also, the majority of them are mom and pops. And so we can give our mom and pop clients still that kind of boutique feel and that boutique, you know, mentality, but also deliver them an exceptional product with all these capabilities and technology and exposure and firepower. So that was really what appealed to me. And obviously Ricardo and the team has been amazing, and they've, you know, are constantly just giving us whatever we need to equip us with helping our clients. And so it's been a great transition.
Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about just the specifics of how Colliers as this big firm can do things and make things happen that maybe some of the boutique firms can't in a second. But first, Mike, can you talk to me a little bit about your move and your new role at Colliers?
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. Thanks for having us today. So, you know, personally, one of the reasons what really kind of pushed me, well, I personally felt that I could deliver the most value to my clients and achieve the best results by being part of a collaborative team and leveraging the resources of, you know, one of the largest commercial real estate brands in the world. And so right now with my current role, I'm kind of a combination between an analyst position and leasing. So I focus on office, retail, and industrial leasing on the South Coast, Central Coast. And, you know, super fortunate to have worked at Radius with these guys and, you know, be in Santa Barbara. But I just personally felt that combining our, you know, local expertise and, you know, the resources that Colliers provides just was ultimately, I could do my job better and provide the best service I can to my clients.
Yeah, that's great. Let's talk specifically about what's happening in Santa Barbara, and you know, anyone can chime in. I know you all have different areas of expertise, but you do work as a team. So, you know, we've got State Street, right? Everybody's talking about State Street, has been talking about it for years. You have to deal with City of Santa Barbara and a State Street master plan. You've got issues in the funk zone and their development. Of course, out in Goleta, there's a lot of you know, tech growth, of course, and some businesses are moving from Santa Barbara to Goleta because it's more friendly out there. Let's just start with State Street, downtown Santa Barbara. What is the landscape? There's obviously a lot of storefronts that are vacant. What does it look like right now, and what can Colliers do to help sort of, you know, improve this situation?
Well, I'll go ahead and speak first, but the first thing I think they need to do is open up State Street. I think the fact that people can't drive down the street anymore, people have become out of touch with what's going on. They don't even know what stores are on State Street anymore. It's kind of chaotic. There's e-bikes riding up and down, back and forth. I'm not opposed to keeping like the 500 block closed or something like that, but I think that most of State Street should open. And if you look at Coast Village Road, and you look at Goleta, and the retail is doing really well in all these other areas, including Upper State. But State Street, as we know, we call Lower State or Middle State, right around the mall and so forth, is really struggling. And Colliers can definitely help by reaching out to, we have relationships with a lot of different tenants and so forth, and plugging in new tenants. But at first, we need the city to open up the street. We need the city to be business friendly. I read an interesting article the other day about Rick Caruso and the AI software that he's generated to help facilitate building plans in the Palisades. And I thought it'd be a good idea for the city of Santa Barbara to try to implement something like that for businesses on State Street that want to open up, because one of the big challenges is it takes you a year to get through the process and get a building permit and open up your business. And that's just not business friendly, and it's hurting the community, it's hurting State Street, it's hurting sales taxes for the city, it's hurting everything. So that's my take. I'll let Miles go from here.
Yeah. So actually, one of our listings and one of our assignments is the retail leasing on the Paseo Nuevo Mall. Right now, we're out there, looking for short-term tenants. And what we've found is that the demand for downtown small retail is really pretty strong, especially amongst local businesses. Local entrepreneurs and business owners do want to be down there. They do see a need and a desire to be down there, and they can have some success down there. But I think right now there's still a lot of uncertainty with what's going to happen with State Street, whether they're going to keep it open, whether they're going to close it, whether, what blocks are going to have what identity and so forth. And I think until we have some sort of certainty and the right perception down there, it's going to be difficult. But I don't want to take away from the fact that downtown and State Street is still a desirable marketplace, and businesses still can do well down there. We just have a few things to figure out, and they'll get figured out with time. But I agree with Austin's comment that the street should be opened up to cars.
Yeah, Santa Barbara Mayor Randy Rouse and some others have said consistently that he's talked to these out of town, out of state companies that are thinking about coming into Santa Barbara, but they say we will not go because the street is closed. And he says this, and some of the activists in town will say, well, who are these people? Or they might doubt that that's a legitimate statement. But maybe Ricardo or anybody, is that true? Like, is it tough to get a high profile tenant, a national tenant? Are they actually saying we're not going to go down there if the street is closed?
They are. It's interesting. The national tenants, because we field a lot of inquiries and we have relationships with a lot of these kind of national retail accounts, they have their eye on State Street for sure. State Street, at one point was thriving with all those businesses, and so they haven't forgotten about State Street. But right now they've been, telling us we want to be in Santa Barbara, where they're, out looking in this market. They're not looking at downtown Lower State Street. They're telling us that they want to go be in Goleta, they want to be in Montecito, they want to be in Carpinteria, and for different reasons. The reason they want to be in Goleta is because that's where, that's where the population is, that's where the housing is, and that's where the shopping centers are. And so right now, the right formula for a lot of these retailers is less the inline kind of high street, State Street strip centers, as it is kind of the more grocery anchored neighborhood centers. They want to position themselves around those types of properties and those types of tenant synergies. And so, yes, State Street is still on their radar, but right now the formula that they're focused on is a little bit of a different product.
Right.
And
Can
Josh,
you talk a little bit?
Go
ahead, Austin.
Retail thrives off of itself, right? That's why malls were invented, right? Is that when you have a bunch of really good retail, it becomes a place where people want to go. It's not just one retail store that drives people. So while having a ton of vacancy on State Street right now, you're killing the whole retail vibe of of the street. And so until we start getting more people, then it has a snowball effect of more tenants coming into the market, et cetera.
Can someone talk about Coast Village Road? Miles brought up Montecito. I recall reading recently that the rents are almost 3 times State Street, but people are willing to go to Coast Village Road, and it's an entirely different story there than downtown. What works on Coast Village Road in Montecito that people and tenants are willing to pay more? Is it just the name, the area? Maybe it's the size of the availability. What's working there? Why does that work?
I think that the size is a good point. State Street's very long. Coast Village Road is only a couple blocks. But in my mind, I think the street is more vibrant and there is less homeless. You don't really see homeless people in Montecito. And so it's a very safe place for people to walk around with their families and kids, and there's great restaurants and it's thriving. And State Street, you see a lot of homeless people, a lot of people talking to themselves, doing weird stuff. And it keeps people from wanting to bring their children and families down there.
Another component that I find very convenient about Coast Village Road that you can't have on State Street is you can just pull up, park diagonally right in front of the storefront or restaurant that you want to go to, jump out of your car, run in, grab a piadini sandwich from Montesano Deli and get out of there. You can't do that on State Street. There's too much friction between getting down, navigating downtown, finding a public parking garage, getting out of the public parking garage, walking to whatever, restaurant or store you want to go to. The simplicity factor of Coast Village Road is also very appealing to customers.
Yeah. Mike, I know you want to weigh in on any of this from your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is kind of just my opinion, but I think one of the reasons that Coast Village has seen a lot of activity recently these past couple of years, the rents have grown, is really just that the foot traffic has become a lot more consistent. And that's just a result of people moving to Montecito, for whatever personal reason. But if you compare that with State Street, the foot traffic's not as consistent in my opinion. So that's why tenants are more willing to pay that higher rent just because they know that foot traffic's going to be there.
Yeah. And so, we've seen there've been obviously the fires in LA, for example. We've seen a lot of people who have moved to Montecito and Santa Barbara and other types of events. It's an attractive market. It's a strange thing with the parking, right? Because it is true. Like what you just said, I've done, like park right in front of Montesano's, go have one of their sandwiches, go to Renault's. And it's such a weird tale of two cities because downtown, it's been turned over to e-bikes and there's only a certain kind of population that's there. And the Coast Village Road is much more vibrant and people are willing to pay. Ricardo, let me ask you a question. Do you see this trend where you have maybe a downtowns that are dying or struggling with retail? And how do you, from that big picture perspective, what has Colliers done to sort of revive those communities who are having similar challenges to Santa Barbara?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we do see it in on the retail side, in particular, right? A lot of the stuff that, all of the guys have been mentioning, right? And it is this is truly where kind of the, local political environment, working with the business community and doing things to help bring tenants into the market, right? Because people are going to want to have their stores where people are going, right? And so obviously there's been a couple things that have been mentioned here, right? Which, are obvious, the accessibility, right? The snowball effect of having other retailers, and creating that ecosystem, people like a good experience and experiential kind of retail in the sense of having a destination to go. And it doesn't always entail just going to one spot. And so as we, have this kind of large national accounts or retailers that are looking across the country and seeing where they want to be, both from a demographic standpoint, right, where Santa Barbara does quite well, right, the demographics of the community are great. So then it's a matter of where do you go, right, and where do you want to be where you're going to get the right foot traffic, the right vibe and overall experience for, the clientele that you're, trying to reach, right? And, and this is where, our team here is seeing it day in and day out as they're talking with tenants, right? And showing them kind of where that foot traffic is, where the other like retailers are, right? To create these ecosystems that are, are going to be ultimately beneficial to where they want to be. And, so we can help with that from a corporate perspective, right? And helping inform our local politicians and helping inform our business and community leaders, as they're making decisions, to help, transform some of these, areas into a more business friendly, thriving community, that, can get activated, if certain things, kind of change or happen.
On State Street, I keep going back there. I know that there's other parts of the community that are thriving, but is the answer there experiential? I know that in the past, in the last few years, they're talking about things like axe throwing, stuff that people can go down and do and participate in, or virtual reality or escape rooms, those kinds of things. People eat at restaurants. Is retail dead? I wrote about how leisure wear has boomed on State Street. We've seen some of those kind of companies. How do you approach this? Like, what kind of clients are you trying to bring here?
So retail is not dead. Retail's thriving. You don't see any of those experiential things on Coast Village Road throwing axes. You can't lease a space there. People are lined up to lease spaces there. Same with Goleta and so forth. So I think that's kind of a cop out. I think, quite honestly, it comes down to leadership. And I think that our city council has ignored what the business community is telling them. And they've decided that they know more than the business community, who has been open about opening up State Street, changing things. It's not working what's happening right now, yet they're doubling down on keeping it closed. And it's interesting to me because, as far as I know, and I'm not pointing at any particular city council person, but in general, I don't know that any of them have run businesses before or understand what it is to run a business. And I think that that's a very important and crucial aspect to turning our town around.
Yeah, I definitely, that perspective matters. Can we talk about Goleta? I live in Goleta, and I always say the Camino Real Marketplace, it's like Disneyland. I mean, there's so many cars there all the time. It is packed. And it's not even just like a car destination place. There's an outside sort of rotunda and patio, and there are people there all the time just hanging out and talking, and they're eating and drinking and coffee, and there's sometimes some like street musicians there. It's extremely vibrant, 7 days a week. What's going on in Goleta that is so effective? How is that happening?
Yeah, I think there's a couple, kind of going back to what I said earlier, that particular product, that kind of neighborhood power center type of real estate is really hot right now. And that's really what all the retailers are gravitating towards, because of the convenience of good parking, good lighting, nice landscape. And then obviously, you've got a community of anchor tenants that all kind of feed off of each other, and then it snowballs from there. And so that, the convenience also for people that live over there, that's really kind of become the town center for Goleta. It's not Old Town Goleta. As Old Town Goleta is technically downtown Goleta, but I would almost classify the Camino Real Shopping Center as downtown or town center of Goleta. And then the other thing that's going on in Goleta that's not as prevalent in Santa Barbara is so many tech companies that are clustered out there and have their offices out there. They have a lot of employees that are there on a daily basis, and they go there for lunch. They go there for after work entertainment. They'll go, pick up something from their daily needs store or whatever it is. So that's really helping it out. And statistically, Goleta, believe it or not, has the lowest vacancy rate for office product of any of the 3 submarkets in the area. So for some perspective, Goleta's office vacancy rate is about 8%. Santa Barbara is about 11%. And then Carpinteria is like 25%. So Goleta actually is the best performing office market. And that's where the most cluster of employees are. And there's actually people that are mandating going back to the office. So there's a lot of employees working, living, and commuting in and out of Goleta every day, which I think really helps out all the retail.
I also think that the ownership of that property has done a very good job of bringing in national tenants and local tenants. There's a great mixture of you've got, you know, everything from On the Alley to Finney's to you know, the Mesa Burger, I think, is out there. There's a bunch of different local tenants, and then you have Home Depot and Costco, and so I give a lot of credit to them on their leasing.
I want to go back to Santa Barbara just quickly on La Cumbre Plaza. Do you have any role in that in terms of that kind of leasing? Is that handled by, I think that's Macerich, which does that? Do you have any thoughts on La Cumbre Plaza retail? Because, you know, you go there, you go eat at Islands, or, you know, some people eat at the Lure. I go buy clothes at Macy's sometimes. You know, there's some art stuff there. It's not exactly the same thing for everybody. How do you guys make inroads into making La Cumbre Plaza something more attractive to the community? I see big smiles on everyone's face.
I was gonna let Chung handle this one because he lives over there, but I don't really go to La Cumbre Plaza. There's not really anything to go there for except for maybe Lure or Starbucks or Bristol Farms.
See's Candy. Come on, Austin.
Yeah, but not inside the actual mall. I mean, I don't know that I've been in there in years, and I think it's pretty much everyone's kind of conceded that it's dead, and there's going to be a bunch of housing coming in. From what I can tell, I don't know anything about those developments. All I know is what you all know. But how about you, Mike? Why don't you talk a little bit about La Cumbre Plaza?
Yeah. And so I also don't really know much about any development there, but this is just like how I would approach this. Maybe is just kind of remembering that, you know, La Cumbre Mall, it's never going to be exactly what it was before. I mean, it's great real estate, it's beautiful. But the challenge is now is that I feel like you just have to recreate a different strategy to bring back some of the national tenants and a blend of local retailers, because it's really just the narrative, in my opinion. You know, it's just not the same. People don't go there ever, and it's just going to have to be, you know, adjust your strategy from a leasing perspective, and it's going to start to change over time. And over time, the narrative is going to become much better, and that's going to draw more people in. And that's how I would kind of visit that situation of just looking at it differently, thinking outside the box. You're going to have to come up with some, you know, maybe some creative uses, and maybe not some of the traditional retailers that you would normally see, but it would take time and just some creative thinking.
Yeah, maybe they should put some frozen yogurt there, because I don't know, frozen yogurt places seem to always be packed, and you can usually find me at them, at least most of the time. But hey, let's shift gears a little bit. I don't know if there's anything related to sort of that retail or commercial office market that we haven't talked about, but I want to shift gears to residential. And I know that obviously, you know, Austin and I have talked about various, you know, owning rental projects, and those have been in the news. There are a lot of laws in effect. What does Colliers do in terms of the residential real estate market, and how is that going to impact Santa Barbara?
Yeah, so I think, you know, Colliers, we're able to be advisors for a lot of these owners, a lot of these mom and pops, as well as a lot of these larger institutional groups. We can kind of run the gambit of a 5-unit building, up to 150 unit building. So, with that, we're still a very local organization. We're all local too here. We've all kind of cut our teeth here. So we do keep our eye on the local ordinances and what is happening. But we also have that national reach. We can pull from other markets, reach out to other brokers in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, and in these other communities, and see how they kind of go about navigating all these laws and ordinances that are in place and these certain kind of rent control guidelines that they have seen that we are now seeing. So it's something that we can pull on experience from other offices as a huge benefit to us. So we're able to kind of learn from others' experience in other markets to help navigate our clients, to kind of help them position their properties or put themselves in a position to be successful. I mean, the city of Santa Barbara has made it very complicated for owners to kind of navigate these new ordinances. So kind of now more than ever, you do need to have a team behind you to kind of bounce ideas off of, get perspective from, and understand what exactly is happening within the community. So that's something that we're able to, research that information, talk to other Colliers offices, as well as get outside perspective, and we'll also work with the local resources and all the vendors that we're able to kind of be in touch with. So we're able to kind of get it from both the local side as well as the national side perspective.
And I was going to just tag on to that, Josh, real quick, is that it's probably more important than ever for residential property owners to be aligning themselves with the correct professionals, whether that's brokers, lawyers. You can no longer really navigate this on your own as an apartment owner.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. With this era of rent evictions, the word has been created. Is it a good time to buy a building and upgrade it and improve it, and then, increase rents accordingly to pay for the work that you've invested in? Is now a good time, or is it time to get out of that business in light of what we've seen locally as well as statewide?
Well, I think right now it's a very difficult time to kind of go in with that business model. I mean, it is kind of a dying model, so to speak. I mean, with these new ordinances that are in place, it discourages ownership to invest in their properties. A lot of these buildings too have been, as you drive around, and a lot of these older buildings, they're beautiful, they're good looking buildings, but kind of all the major systems are at the end of their useful life. So, a lot of it is small patchwork, this or that, which definitely affects the sustainability of these properties. But, ownership groups are hesitant to go in and invest large sums of money because they're now not able to kind of get the returns on it as they once were. So it's definitely going to affect the quality of product here in town. I think the model for buyers when they're looking at these properties, especially with the 1-year moratorium, as well as, kind of the renovation aspect of it, they're looking at the property's current situation. They're looking at the property's current situation, maybe with one annual increase associated with it. And so, you no longer have that, oh yeah, well, there's a ton of great upside down the road. It's everything's valued on kind of how it is now. So you could have two properties right next to each other. One maybe trades at 500 a door, and you could have the same exact, building profile and a bedroom, bathroom, setup, but it's going to maybe trade at, 350 or 400 a door. And, these owners are looking at you or asking questions. And reason being is kind of how the rents are structured and how the property is kind of situated. And so again, kind of back to what Austin had said, big thing for us and a lot of the conversations that we're having is how do we kind of take a look at the current situation? How do we build a plan, put a plan together for down the road so you can kind of optimize how best to position your property to sell when you're ready. Santa Barbara is always going to be a highly desirable location. There's always going to be interest in Santa Barbara. Owners want to own in Santa Barbara. Owners like driving by their properties and kind of seeing these locations. And, we're in a very unique place in the city. It's a beautiful place. It's a lovely place that people want to invest in. And so there's always going to be demand, but it is difficult to kind of navigate how the city has set up these ordinances. And so you just want to really be careful and make sure you have professionals around you. But there's definitely still a lot of demand. It's just kind of the business model and the strategy for investment is adjusting based on, it's understanding the rules and working within them.
Mm-hmm. Can somebody give me just sort of like a 1 or 2 minute explanation of how difficult it is when you go and invest in a building and how much that costs and what that is in terms of your loan, your financing, your construction, your rehabilitation, because there is a perception for people who are not in the industry that, oh, well, in Santa Barbara, you can just charge these incredibly high rents and they're going to make that back. And these people aren't really, hurting financially. The numbers might be bigger, but if you could explain it in a way that makes sense to, people who have to manage a bank account and make decisions about investments, how does that work? Why is it such a disincentive to buy something in light of what Santa Barbara's real estate laws are? Like, why is that so difficult when we think, well, you just charge $6,000, and you'll make it back? Can somebody kind of walk me through that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is that, there's you got your CPI and your 5% or your 10%, whichever's less. But, interest rates, if you're looking at a property, they're trading right now prior to in the past 3 to 5 years, for past 3 years, when interest rates were lower and ownership was able to leverage that, you're able to get at a 3% cap rate. And, as a seller, now we're not seeing that. There's a large discrepancy between buyers and sellers. And with that, we're seeing insurance premiums grow, 50 to 100%. We're seeing a lot of these buildings at the end of their useful life. So, buildings break down, you're going to need a lot of patchwork, as well as interest rates now are in that 5 to 6% range. And so, even looking at a 6-unit building or a 10-unit building, you're having to put 45% down, which, in past times you're able to kind of leverage the interest market a little better, and you're not able to do that as well now just because you're still paying a premium for these properties. So if you're putting 45% down at a 6% interest rate and you're purchasing a building at a 5 cap, you're obviously a little bit inverted there. And so it is difficult. And so you're running fairly thin. And so when you're seeing annual increases with insurance, with cost of living, a lot of these owners with maintenance, with construction costs, it is a much thinner margin than it has been in the past. And so there is a lot of difficulty there for ownership groups that, are trying to come into the market and improve these properties just because they're having to put close to 50% down, where they can go to other markets and maybe find, take that, their money reaches a lot further. And so they're trying to do the best they can, but it's very difficult for these groups to find, it's just a thin margin for ownership.
I want to get to kind of looking out at the future and sort of like big deals sort of in the works, or, whatever I can glean from all of you. But just real quickly, what was the shakeup like when all of you left, when all of you went from one of the most prominent boutique firms to Colliers? What's been the word on the street? How are your clients reacting, the community? Somebody could just sort of talk about, because it's a big deal when you have 5 heavyweights just shifting over to a new company. What's that been like?
It's been exciting. And really all of our clients have been really excited. We've had people reach out to us who we've never worked with before, and talk to us about how they too saw this as a gap in our market. And so it's opening up a lot of doors that we didn't have before. But more than anything, it's been exciting. I feel like, I was over there for 19, almost 20 years, and change is good too. It's gotten me a lot more excited every day. I love working with these guys, being a team with these guys. And it's just, it's been an exciting time, and it feels like we're really growing something and doing something different.
Great. So we got about 10 more minutes. Can I glean from you, or can I get any scoops? What are the big deals going down, or what is Colliers working on? Obviously, I would imagine, you're new in town and you've made these acquisitions and, this personnel, this talent, you want to make a splash, right? Like, there's going to be some cool stuff going on. What's going on? What are you working on?
Right now, we're working on, we're selling a hotel right now, we've got a bunch of different, I would say smaller deals. I would say in general, the institutional size, larger deals that we've done in the past have kind of gone onto the side burner here until interest rates either come down or sellers change their pricing guidance. So right now, it's really hasn't been a ton of big trades going on. We've just had a lot of kind of owner user deals. Miles just recently sold a really beautiful office building and to an owner user. We've been busy leasing some different office spaces here in town, but nothing major or monumental in the works at this time.
What about the funk zone? What's going on with is there the funk zone a target market? Is it funky in terms of how you approach it? There's that hotel went up and some people were very happy about that. Some people were very upset about it. Funk zone losing its charm. What kind of market is that for you? Is there potential?
Miles, you should talk about the bakery block and all that.
I actually think, Josh, the funk zone is going through like its second wind right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it had its first wind, whatever that was, 10, 15 years ago, where all the microbreweries and the wineries and so forth kind of all clustered down there, and it caught a lot of momentum and became this really cool, vibrant destination that everybody wants to go hang out in and lease space in and buy property in. And then as that kind of materialized and stabilized, so to speak, the funk zone went through a time where not a lot of property traded, not a lot of new businesses went in there, aside from the ones that started there. And then last year, I think, was the most active year for properties trading hands in the funk zone. I think there was maybe 4 or 5 properties total last year that sold in the funk zone, which is a lot. And it's obviously, it's not a big area.
Right.
The most prominent property that sold last year was the bakery block, which is the little over 2-acre contiguous block between Yananale down to Mason Street and Gray on one side and Santa Barbara Street on the other side. And Brian Kelly purchased that block and has a really exciting project that's going to take place down there. It's in the works right now. I think he's working through the city and planning and all those sorts of steps, but he's going to curate a very, very exciting project there. There's going to be a little bit of a mix of, sounds like restaurant, retail, more lively outdoor experiential concepts. So when that all comes together, I think that's really going to take the funk zone to the next level. And like I said, it's really going through its second wind right now. So yes, we are seeing a lot of good activity happen down there. We're still plenty of demand from tenants that want to be there, and investors that want to invest in the funk zone. So it's still positioned as a great little micro submarket for our town.
And I got to give credit to Brian Kelly, because Brian really wanted to preserve the funk zone. I don't know if you recall, but there was a massive development slated for that property, and Brian, who's really kind of the founder of the funk zone, also wanted to preserve its funkiness and keep that block the way it is and make it really cool and hip, and he's got such a great eye for that sort of stuff. So I think all of us are appreciative that Brian got involved, and obviously we were appreciative because we sold him the property, but we're appreciative just from a community standpoint that he's really preserving it and keeping it the funk zone.
Yeah, that's great. And just we're going to spitball just a couple things before we wrap up here. But housing, it sounds like you all are supportive of housing. If we, Miles has sort of talked about Goleta, and people live there, so it becomes this neighborhood shopping center. Are you optimistic about housing on State Street to help revive the downtown? On one hand, you'd say yes, but then Peter Lewis builds this housing and sells it to UCSB, and so it's tough to do. It's tough to create housing downtown. But can you just talk a little bit about how housing correlates to the success of commercial and retail in downtown?
Yeah, I think it's a huge direct correlation. There is a huge demand for housing right now, not enough supply. And if you can get a lot of individuals, young professionals that are in walking distance to these restaurants, these markets, these kind of activities that are downtown, it'll naturally bring more individuals out there. It'll create its own buzz itself. So there does need to be a road for developers to find opportunities in that kind of State Street downtown corridor to build housing, because it definitely helps if there's more activity there. See, when things get stagnant, that's when you start to see kind of people start camping in front of door fronts and in front of lots. But when there's still a lot of activity, there's still a little bit of buzz in the area, you don't see that as often. And so if you're opening up State Street, if you're promoting housing downtown, it all works together. It all correlates. And so, as well with the demand. So if there's an opportunity, I think we should definitely promote as much, as housing that's suitable for that area down there.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to see housing downtown. It's so tough though. It's so expensive,
Right.
and it's who's going to be able to afford it. But, we'll
And
see.
it's a
There's
lot of
really
red
adaptive
tape.
reuse as well. What's that?
There's just a lot of red tape, right? It's a very long, painful process, and obviously, if you can kind of remove some of those hurdles, I think you'd see a lot more individuals interested and kind of help kind of keep their costs mitigated. It's very difficult to develop when you're trying to plan 3 to 4 years out when you're actually going to break ground. And so, if you can kind of all those variables come in as a factor when you're looking at this stuff. So if you can control a lot of those variables, I think you'd see a lot more groups willing to try to take opportunities downtown.
Yeah. I do have to say, I know that Miles mentioned earlier that you do the retail leasing for Paseo Nuevo, speaking of downtown. And I'm a diehard lover of Paseo Nuevo. I love that mall. I know that there's lots of talk about what the future of the mall will be, but I think you all are doing a good job with the leasing since you took it over. It is, time I'm down there, it feels pretty good to me. I see a lot of people. It does feel vibrant. And of course, it's beautiful as well, the architecture. So hopefully you can keep that going and, make that a vibrant destination downtown, because Santa Barbara's got the gut, the bones. It's beautiful. Just got to figure out a way to make it all work. And the news of the day, Austin, is bring cars back to State Street, right? That's going to open up a lot of avenues, it sounds like. So, I think we've covered a lot of ground. I know Ricardo or Austin or anyone you want to sort of chime in, last words on sort of what people should know about Colliers going forward and sort of the impact you all are going to make here in Santa Barbara.
Yeah, no, thanks again for having us, Josh. No, we're just really excited both to be in the Santa Barbara market now, and specifically with this team, and just really excited to kind of see them continue to grow their businesses and be able to really service their clients fully wherever their clients, may have real estate or may want to have real estate. So just couldn't be more excited about kind of the growth and momentum that we're building here locally, just across Southern California, and bringing this team on is just a testament to that, bringing the right people, and being able to kind of service their clients in the right way.
Great. Well, thank you. I really appreciate your time. Miles Waters, Mike Lopus, Mike Chung, Austin Herlihy, Ricardo Pacheco. Thanks so much for taking the time and just talking about Colliers and the Santa Barbara real estate landscape. So thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
Take care.